Welcome everybody to Frank Analysis. I am your host, Franco. So following the fallout between MPP and Our Revolution LA, many people who are in the leadership position of Movement for a People's Party or who support Movement for a People's Party were claiming that many of the ex-volunteers for Movement for a People's Party were infiltrators who were spreading smears about Movement for a People's Party. So I'm here to discuss with former volunteers of Movement for a People's Party about their experiences working for the People's Party and what their actual intentions were. So I'm joined here right now with Joe Cheray. So Joe, how are you doing today? You want to introduce yourself to everybody real quick?
I'm doing good. We finally have sunshine here in Kansas.
Good to hear. So, Joe, how long have you been a volunteer for Movement for a People's Party, and what was your role?
I was a volunteer for the People's Party from September to February, and I was the leader of the People with Disabilities Political Outreach Circle.
And so what motivated you initially to want to join the Movement for a People's Party? Why did you want to volunteer for them?
Because I have a son that's disabled. He has cerebral palsy, and I feel like as an advocate for him, I needed to have another place at the table somewhere to advocate for people with disabilities. And so I thought that People's Party was going to be a viable avenue.
Yeah,
but I was wrong.
So what kind of policies were they promising that attracted you to want to help them out?
Well, I did see that they had a plank for disability rights on their platform, and there was language that's on there now that was not on there until I came along, which spoke to the sub-minimum wage that is still legal for disabled people to be paid in 49 states in the union, and also home and community-based supports. Like I said before I came on, those two things were not part of their platform. So they pretty much jacked my ideas without giving me any credit for adding that.
So
they probably will deny that.
So I want to let everybody know here, Joe Cheray, you live in Kansas and you have no affiliation at all with Our Revolution, Los Angeles, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so were you initially happy with Movement for a People's Party? When did you begin to notice things that disappointed you with the People's Party?
Initially, things were going good. I was voted to be the leader of the Disability Circle, and I grew my circle to 41 members, and I very quickly organized it. And I was even being praised by Tiffany Anning, the political outreach coordinator, for very quickly organizing and the group and my efforts and stuff. But what really started me questioning was when we were in a political working group meeting and we were told not to focus on policy, but focus on outreach only. And I'm like, okay, but how can you focus on just outreach without discussing policy? People want to know what they're getting into or why they should be part of the movement. So I pushed back on that. And then there's just other things like decisions not being not being allowed to have decision making agency and other things.
Why would they tell you not to talk about policy to people when you're outreaching them? Shouldn't they be one and the same?
That you would think so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're talking to like state legislators in your area or congressional legislators in DC or advocacy groups, um, they depend on policy to make their decisions. So to me, that just never, I didn't understand why.
So what
But
kind of
then
people? Sorry, go
as
ahead and
time,
finish.
go ahead.
No. Sorry, go ahead and finish your
I was
thought.
just going to say, as time went on, though, I started to see through the cracks, and it quickly became evident to me that we were just chasing clout for MPP. We weren't really going to have a significant say in the structure of the organization.
So were there other people that were sharing these concerns that you had? Like, were there other people that were also saying that it appeared like they cared more about clout than actually having like a good structure and giving volunteers within the movement a voice?
Oh, yeah, there was over 200 of us that signed a petition
Mm.
asking for changes. I was one of those people that signed the petition. And I was one of the people that presented the petition to the National Coordinating Circle and the General Coordinating Circle. And and this is one thing that they're going to deny, that they had no clue what they were walking into, but they had the petition the night before and looked it over for 3 hours. So they didn't come in at the meeting with fresh eyes like we had hoped that they would have.
And
So someone leaked the petition to them the night before.
okay. So how long did it take for them to respond? Because there's a few people that were in the position of leadership or who are defending those in leadership that were saying that the petitioners were being impatient. How long did it take for them to reply?
I want to say maybe about 2 weeks. And then they kept us waiting on a Zoom call for 2 hours, trying to not give us the benefit of the doubt, and not trying to work with us. And I know because I was on that call too.
So you were removed from the volunteer Slack, also the state Slack, the base camp, and then they blocked you on Twitter. Their IT guy, Thomas Royko, Nick Brana, and Annalise Garcia, they also blocked you on Twitter. And here's a message that they gave the people for why MPP removed you from these platforms. So I'm going to show this real quick to everybody. So this is from Tiffany Anning of Massachusetts. So she said, she tagged the channel. She said, "We regret to inform you that we have had to revoke Joe Cheray's invitation to volunteer for Movement for a People's Party as of today. The CC has been provided with multiple instances of Ms. Cheray spreading false information regarding our movement on Twitter. Last night, she, along with a number of former volunteers, launched a full-on assault on social media. We could not, in good conscience, let her continue to do damage to the movement we are building. Screenshots will be shared with the community later this afternoon." So what false information are they saying, are they talking about exactly that you were spreading on Twitter?
I was pushing back against the petition response by Annalise Garcia, and they didn't like that. So I'm sure that Thomas took things back to the Slack and to National Coordinator Circle and the Coordinator Circle, and probably most likely said that I was being a problem on social media and to get rid of me. And later that night, I went to go check on Slack for something, and I had my access revoked. I didn't even get a letter or an email saying, we're sorry, your access has been revoked from MPP. So it was just everything gone.
So they didn't give
So,
you an email or anything about what the reason why they just put that, they just let everybody else know?
yep.
And
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 they shared a, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead and finish your thoughts.
And then they shared a screenshot taken way out of context with Susan Sarandon and everybody else on the advisory council, and didn't give me a chance, or the other person a chance that was on this screenshot, to explain our conversation.
Okay. So you're talking about the screenshot that you sent me? The one where you were discussing with Harley?
Yes.
Okay.
That one.
I'm gonna pull that up real quick for everybody to see. Okay, so I'm back here with all right, so here's a screenshot. So this is your tweet that you sent. You said, depending on what happens with Washington Days here in Kansas, I may have a plausible out with Movement for a People's Party. Ryan announcing publicly he has stepped back from Movement for a People's Party is the best thing to happen to us folks. And then Harley Morency, she wrote, now we need to target Susan Sarandon and Cornel West. And then you responded and said, those two will be huge. There is this tweet that is for sure making me 100% not signing on NDA. And then the tweet that you're talking about, that you quoted, was a response to Proud Socialist, which is Ryan Knight. And it said, it was by Brendan Becker. And it says, I had to back away from Movement for a People's Party after seeing the typical, quote, any software engineering you do is our exclusive property line in the contract/NDA they expect people to sign. So what exactly was your intention in this tweet, and what did Harley mean when she said, quote, target Susan Sarandon and Cornel West?
We wanted to talk to Susan Sarandon and Cornel West and give them our side of the story and let them know what MPP was doing, since they were on the and are still on the advisory council. That's all we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get that chance.
Right, and right now,
so far the only...
Sorry, go ahead and finish your thoughts.
Go ahead. Sorry, technology, it doesn't allow you the
yeah.
same kind of transitioning that you get in real life.
Yeah.
You know, there are a few people on the advisory council that did listen to us. You know, mm-hmm. I did talk to Ryan Knight, and he listened to me. He listened to everything I had to say, and he took everything to heart, and I appreciate that. And, you know, I'm still willing to talk to anybody else that's on the advisory council and give them my experiences. And I meant no ill intent. Mm-hmm. I wasn't trying to give anybody death threats or anything like that. I have a son, and with a disability, the last thing I want is some weird target on my back mm-hmm. from anybody that might wish me ill will because of what's going on with this whole thing. So I don't know how they conflated the two. The only thing it is that's going on with this whole thing is they're just mad because I spoke out and argued with their IT guy on Twitter.
Okay.
So they don't like dissenters.
So is that what initially sparked this them feeling upset with you? Was you got in an argument with Thomas Royko, and what was the argument about?
Just pushing back about on things about ADA compliance with the website, and the organization as a whole. They do not provide ASL or closed captioning for their national calls, and I had asked them to do that, and they said that they couldn't afford it. And I said, well, there are college kids that do know ASL. Why not? And I did bring this up with Phil Paletto, who is regional coordinator. And I said, well, Phil, what about college kids? Why can't you tap into a college that has an assisted services department or something like that? And closed captioning, they have a paid Zoom account. They can easily incorporate closed captioning into the national calls. They did do one change and have kept it implemented. They did implement otter.ai, which is a transcription service. But they just did that the last 2 volunteer calls and this last 1 national call. So, I had to fight to even get that for the people with disabilities circle and, the disability community as a whole that MPP claims to represent.
Right.
And, and again, being included in decision making, within both political parties, the Republican and Democratic parties, caucuses and caucus leaders do have a say in what happens with national. And we didn't have that say. We got mandates handed down to us by Nick and the NC, like we're employees or something, but it was not like, oh, by the way, we have this action we'd like your help with, like forced the vote. I got into a huge argument about that. Like, that should have been something the people with disabilities circles should have been involved in, that we weren't. And there was some kind of a project with data that had been suggested, and I said, oh, really? Political outreach circles were supposed to be involved in this? That's news to me. And then Tiffany comes back and says, well, we don't feel like the circles need to be involved in this at this time. And I'm like, but this has been going on for a few weeks, and so when are we supposed to be involved? So yeah, just things like that.
Okay. Yeah, so there is a dysfunctionality there with you trying to get your message to them about how there needs to be improvements on outreaching to people with disabilities. And was there like a structure on who you had to reach out to first? You mentioned Phil, and what's his last name?
Aledo.
Aledo. Okay. Yeah, I think I met him in DC. Yeah. So why was there the hesitancy at first? Was because they thought that it was going to be too expensive?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, you can go to a nearby college,
right?
Any college actually, and tap into their assisted services department if you're worried about cost. I'm sure that there's colleges that have people who do ASL,
Yeah, or even like elementary or middle schools or high schools.
Yeah, or Fiverr. Yeah. I found 10 Fiverr gigs over the weekend where there are people looking to get paid to do ASL translations for companies and businesses and whatever else people need an ASL translator for. And Fiverr's cheap. So there's no excuse.
Yeah, so there seems to be a lack of knowledge on how some of these things work in the leadership position. And if there is indeed a lack of knowledge on how to access some of these tools to improve outreach, then they should be asking the people who are serving roles like yourself and they should be listening to people like you on, you know, how they can improve their outreach. But it seems like from what you're telling me that there's a dysfunctionality there, and there was a hesitancy in wanting to listen to the volunteers. Have you heard of any other instances like that in which the leadership didn't want to listen to the volunteers?
Well, okay, we were originally promised a horizontal self-organizing structure, and it quickly, over the last few months, has devolved into a top-down structure. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's something that we all kept pushing back on. And we weren't given really concrete organizing documents either. Again, I had no documentation on how I was supposed to form my circle when I agreed to be the leader, or when I was voted to be the leader, I should say, I'm sorry. And I had to do everything from scratch. You know, I had to set up my own system, which I don't care. But if, you know, I'm going to be setting up my own system, then tell me at the beginning that, okay, you're on board. Thank you for your time to put into this effort. For now, we do not have any organizing documents for you, so you will have to organize yourself. There are organizing documents in the works, and when they are done, they will be provided to you. I didn't even get that. So, and a lot of us didn't.
Wow. Yeah, so
there are people, go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry, finish your thoughts.
Oh, I was going to say, there's like hub coordinators and state coordinators and stuff that are still, you know, really trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing too.
Well, yeah, so you said that Annalise is using the thread that you had with Harley to discredit the petitioners. Is she saying that this is evidence that you're an infiltrator and that the other volunteers who are petitioners are infiltrators?
Yeah. And she also admitted on the Vanguard that she showed the screenshot to Susan Sarandon. That's how I found out that it was shared.
And she's
having to watch that.
And she's trying to say that you have bad intentions because of what was said there?
Yes.
Right. And then, but
which is completely false.
But your actual intentions is that you want people like Cornel West and Susan Sarandon to know about some of the dysfunctionalities and things that are making the volunteers upset with the way that MPP is structured.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. You want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
That was the whole intention. Well, I mean, they need to know that volunteers have asked for direction, and we haven't gotten the direction that we requested. We've also asked for financial transparency. That has not been provided to us. We feel like we get talked down to, or I should say when I was, and I felt like I was starting to get talked down to quite a bit. Laura Morris had questioned my commitment to People's Party. And I'm like, if I wasn't completely committed to this organization the way I had been, I wouldn't have had all of the meetings that I did for our circle. I wouldn't have volunteered to be in the political outreach coalition building working group. And I also wouldn't have volunteered to be in the political outreach onboarding volunteer group. In addition to everything else I have going on outside of People's Party. So I don't know how they could have questioned my commitment to what I was doing any more than what I was doing,
So
honestly.
who was talking down to people like you?
Laura Morris talks down to people. Um, Tiffany actually talks down to people. Um, Rod Branna talks down to people.
Is
Thomas
that
Roico
is
talks down to people. Rod is Nick's dad.
okay? Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Hmm.
I mean,
So,
I don't have access to People's Party Twitter or Thomas's Twitter anymore. But before I was blocked, I was privy to a screenshot where Rod was saying that I was uh, acting with either acting with bad faith or that I was showing ill intent or something. I'll have to find it again and maybe we can share it with your audience at a
hmm.
later time. But yeah,
So what kind of things
that's
would
it.
they say to people when they were talking down to the volunteers?
Just really being really nasty and condescending. I I have examples not with me and that I didn't share with you at the time, and maybe this could be another show.
Mm.
But we do have a lot of instances where if we disagreed with anything, we were pretty much treated like crap. And so um, when I asked, when I was really pushing for all the ASL stuff, Thomas thought that I was inconveniencing him because I was actually making him do work. And he's an IT guy for the People's Party, and he's the tech and working group outreach or lead. So, that's your job. You're supposed to be doing this stuff anyway. So, me making you feel like you're inconvenienced because you actually have to do some work is crap.
Hmm.
It's not right.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds very disappointing because for a long time I was looking forward to MPP. Like I thought that this was it. Like we finally have something that is going to challenge the two-party system, the duopoly, which is really a one party. It's a monopoly because they're owned by the same people. But the more I started hearing from people like you who were volunteers, the more disappointed I got because I start hearing about these dysfunctionalities. I start hearing about the leadership being incompetent, and now I'm hearing that the leadership is apparently nasty to its volunteers. And we will have another volunteer on the show, Renee Johnston, later, so she's going to also talk about her experience. Ed Lee, who has a YouTube channel, DJ Alf 7, also talked about his experiences. But I mean, if it's going to be truly a people's party, then the people who are going to have more of a say is the majority of the people who are helping with the organization more than the leadership. Correct?
Correct. Yes. And people that are actually in these marginalized communities that know the struggles, you know. I mean, I now, Tiffany is running 7 political outreach circles, including the one that I got axed from. And I'm sorry, but she doesn't have anybody that's disabled. I do. I know exactly what the disabled community is going through on a day-to-day basis because my family's living it 24/7.
Right.
So, we're on a fixed income and food stamps and Section 8 and state health insurance. And, we got our home and community-based supports axed 3 years ago. And I've been fighting the state for 3 years to try to get our home and community-based supports reinstated. And So yeah, I know the struggles of what disabled people go through because my son's disabled. And um, so yeah, our voices are critically important if you're going to be a party for the people.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that the People's Party can be saved, or do you think that is it possible to see any improvements, or do you think that people should abandon the People's Party?
For now, they need to abandon it. It's a dumpster fire, and uh, People's Party needs to do a lot of self-examination and see exactly where their identity is and what they're about. And they need to learn how to treat people that are trying to help them a lot better before I would recommend anybody helping out with People's Party.
Right. And then one thing I want people to keep in mind when they listen to other channels who are promoting MPP is look at who they're mainly bringing on. Like, are they only bringing on like people who are famous on YouTube or like around social media? To it's going to be a very biased perspective if they're bringing on people who are in positions of leadership, right? We have to make things fair. We have to also talk to the volunteers, and then after discussing with the volunteers, challenge the leadership with the information that you gathered with the volunteers, because you want to be fighting for the people, so you want to hear out what the volunteers say. So Joe Cheray, I thank you very much for coming on. Are there any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me on and letting me voice my thoughts and giving me a chance to clear my name.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and to that end, I do want to say that I just want my name to be cleared. I never wished any ill will or death on anybody or anything like that. And I would love to have a chance to actually have a one-to-one conversation with Susan Sarandon and Cornell West if you're out there listening to this, and have a chance to talk to you and give you our side of the story. So my DMs on Twitter are open. I'm actually following Susan Sarandon on Twitter, so if you want to talk to me, you can DM me since I am following you. And I'm willing to talk to anybody else that's willing to talk to us and clear my name.
Joe Cheray, thank you very much again for coming on, and everybody else, stay informed. Take care, everybody.